Now, folks, if you'll just gather around a little closer now. Come right in a little closer. That's it. That's fine, folks.
Do you wish that the Saudi Arabians were around when you was in your prime and you could have maybe got one of those big paydays?
Ooh, do I? Yes, yes, man. They throwing all kind of money around like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I totally wish that these guys were around, man, especially when I was a world champ, because my resume speaks for itself. You know, my resume has all kind of names on it from a couple different eras, and from Tarver to Fury, you know, that's complete different eras. And I didn't make a lot of money fighting these guys. The Tarver fight was my biggest purse, you know, and that wasn't $1 million at all by far.
I just went on the box rec and I put David Haye's resume up and I put Steve Cunningham's resume. And if there was a window for Undisputed, it wasn't a big window. Some people say Haye avoided the fight. He didn't. He didn't stay at cruiser that long at world title level. He jumped up to heavy because that's where the big money was. And that's what Steve done eventually as well. The Haye fight would have been easily his biggest payday. You know, when Steve was at championship level, a lot of his fights took place in Germany. There was no big money fights at cruiserweight in America around 2006 to 2012, where his run at cruiser, winning and losing and winning the title, ended. The PBC didn't arrive in America till around 2015, and he had a couple of fights on there. But yeah, his biggest purse was against Tarver, and like you said, it wasn't nowhere near $1 million. The Haye fight in the UK would have been his biggest payday by far. I'm not sure if it would have exceeded £1 million though. But David Haye was having big showdowns. The unification with Enzo Macronelli at the O2. That was a big night. Big domestic showdown. If they had fought for Undisputed in the UK, perhaps Cunningham's purse would have exceeded $1 million. But he would have loved the opportunity to get that Saudi money. Could have been taken on the likes of Jael Pettetter over there. For a minute, we're just going to stay in the cruiserweight division.
Johnny Nelson was down to box Cole Thompson for the Central Area title years ago. The purse was 1,500 quid each. Cole Thompson's manager, a fellow called Nat Basso, said they can't fight for that amount. It's derogatory. So they never did. And it's a good job they didn't, because obviously years later, they boxed in a world title fight for a lot more money. And, you know, it was the right decision at the time. So getting back to Dalton and Adam AZIM.
Before we move on, I want it noted that Steve Cunningham wasn't some safety first guy. Steve was in good fights. There's not many Philly fighters who are not in good fights. Steve was in good fights. But sometimes it ain't your time. You know, you're in the wrong market or territory. You ain't got the dance partners. The promotion ain't doing their job. You might not be in a popular weight class. But yeah, Dominic Ingle was replying to whether Dalton Smith and Adam AZIM should take place. And he used the example of Thompson and Johnny Nelson, Carl Thompson and Johnny Nelson, saying it was a good thing they didn't fight at the time, because down the line they had a cruiserweight fight for the WBO title, which Johnny Nelson won. So Dominic, I guess, was making an argument that perhaps Dalton Smith and Adam AZIM could be more lucrative down the line for a world title fight. Well, here's the thing. Dominic was assisting his dad, Brendan, who was the head man at the Winker Bank gym. Dominic was, he was learning his trade, coaching. So he was in the corner for Carl Thompson versus Johnny Nelson. But I'm sure Johnny didn't know at the time when Nat Basso, a Manchester promoter, I remember the name well, decided he's not going to put Carl Thompson in there. And I'm guessing Brendan Ingle weren't going to put Johnny in there to fight for the Central Area title for $1,500. But when is Brendan talking about with his Central Area title? I mean, Johnny Nelson was fighting for world titles in 1990. So there must be a 10-year gap between that proposed Central Area title fight and the 1999 WBO title fight. They didn't know they were going to meet each other. And the only reason Carl and Johnny didn't fight is because the money weren't right. And back then, that could be the only reason a fight wouldn't happen. But nobody is saying that Adam AZIM is being made a paltry offer by Matchroom or anything like that. It would go to a purse bid. And Eddie Hearn said there'll be a bag full of money for both men. Here's something I want people to understand. You don't fight for British titles and European titles and expect to get apprenticeship treatment. Training wheels come off. You don't fight for them belts unless you're prepared to take on all comers. They go, oh, he's young, precious baby. That's what Shelly Finkel was doing with Deontay Wilder. When he won the belt, he could have fought Vlad for undisputed. Oh, he's still a baby. Look where Wilder's career is now. And what's the guarantee that both of them are going to win world titles and they have this unification? The fight is hot now at domestic and European level. I believe the WBC have a youth belt. I suggest Ben Shalom put Adam Azim's name forward and fight for that belt, if age restriction is a concern. I'll leave it there for now. Everyone's saying it's a done deal, but Boxing Scene have got this receipt saying Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall, rematch date and venue agreed. Catterall signs his end, which means someone hasn't signed their end. So is it on or is it not? They're saying April the 27th in Leeds. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Like, I don't like that phrase that promoters are cashing people out, because this is not the 60s. This ain't British boxing when there was characters like Benny Huntsman, and this ain't American boxing when the mob was ruling the sport. Boxers make informed choices. A lot of the fighters we're talking about are getting cashed out, are actually given an option of fighters who they might want to consider fighting. You know, a lot of people say, oh, Eddie Hearn cashed out Kell Brook.
Gennady Golovkin against Kell Brook.
No fighter in the history of the sport has been cashed out for a 3.5 million guarantee. That's what Kell Brook got. He wanted that fight. I don't know what the percentage would be, but it would be a high percentage of the men who put on gloves saying, cash me out for 3.5 million pounds. Cash me out, please. Please exploit me for 3.5 million pounds. When fighters got cashed out back in the day, yeah? If they said to their promoter, well, I know what you're doing to me, you're exploiting me. If they turned down the cash out, it would be hard for them to get a gig anywhere else. You know, you go back to the 40s. If you wasn't working with Jack Solomons, you weren't making no money. Then you go across the pond, you go against the mob, they break your fucking legs. Or worse. You know, look at boxers today. Bootsen is suing his promoter. You couldn't do that shit in the 60s or 70s, man. The wife of Boots' promoter passed and the wife inherited the contract. Well, back in the day, a lot of people inherited fighters' contracts. And they couldn't do shit. Yeah, you're fighting for him now. You're fighting for him now. Yeah, that used to happen all the time. So no, Josh Taylor is not getting cashed out by Top Rank. This is make or break, sink or swim for Josh Taylor. There's nowhere to go. Yeah? He ran from that Catterall rematch for as long as he could. Went across the pond to fight Teofimo Lopez, lost the last of his belts. He no longer has undisputed status. He has to come off his pompous Josh Taylor thing right now and grind, get back in that domestic grind, try and win this fight more convincingly than he won the first one. Yeah? He's not getting cashed out. There's just no paydays in America for the guy unless he's prepared to be used as a stepping stone. After that TO performance, what can Bob do with Josh Taylor in America? He's had all the big fights he could have in America, whether that's Jose Ramirez and Teofimo Lopez. He was successful in one of them. The other one was a flop. He has to try and get back some of his luster with a dominant performance against Jack. There's no work for him in America right now. Unless someone is going to use him as a stepping stone. There's no work for him. You know, I have a feeling Top Rank, I'll probably take it or leave it with the Catterall fight. But Bob has an obligation to do a job for his client. And this is the best fight that he can get for Josh Taylor. It's not a cash out. The options are limited. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and Catterall, they were pushing for this harder than Josh Taylor and Top Rank were. No doubt about that. It will be a popular fight in the United Kingdom, not so big in America. It will be good content for the States. The dedicated boxing fans will remember the controversy that surrounded the first fight, and the fight was for undisputed. So it'll be good content. Wrong side of the time zone for the Americans, but nevertheless, good content. All the cheeky buggers try and make us over here pay pay-per-view for that fight, though. The first fight was on Sky for undisputed, and that wasn't pay-per-view. What have both of them done since? Jack's had a couple of points wins on Matchroom, and Josh got his ass whooped by Teofimo. There's no belts on the line. I just got a feeling they're going to make this pay-per-view because Eddie was saying that DAZN don't see it as a pay-per-view fight. And if any network outside of DAZN wants to put it on as a pay-per-view, they've got no problem letting Jack go across there and take the fight. So what's changed? Because no one took Eddie up on the offer to say, okay, we'll put it on pay-per-view. DAZN are going to air it in the UK. I have a feeling we're going to have to pay for this one. It's not right, though. Football is not like boxing. You know, in football, if you get some contentious decisions that go your way, like the opposition team score perfectly good goals and they're called offside, you get penalties that go your way, free kicks, etc., and corners, and you win the game. Regardless of anything, you know, you could play a boring game, park the bus in front of the goal, get all the decisions go your way. If you score the relevant goals, you win. You win. Unless, you know, there's a case of match fixing that enabled the win, you win. You get the 3 points. In boxing, you can get all the contentious decisions go your way, box a horrible fight, and they'll still lift your arm on the scorecard saying you're the winner. We see it so many times. So to see the ring take Teofimo Lopez out of the pound-for-pound rankings, which he entered last year after defeating Josh Taylor, was refreshing. It's a shame that the sanctioning bodies don't do anything like that to reflect a more level playing field. You know what I mean? But yeah, credit due to the ring. Teofimo Lopez no longer a pound-for-pound fighter, and I know that will piss him off, but they did the right thing. If Jermaine Ortiz is ranked amongst the Ring Magazine's top light welterweights, I would hope that he is not demoted from where he was last. I'm not saying they should elevate him necessarily, because that would be at the expense of a fighter ranked above him, but he shouldn't be demoted either. If they're going to take Teofimo Lopez out of the rankings because they weren't impressed with his performance, maybe the general perception at the Ring Magazine was that he lost the fight. If he's going to get demoted, well, Jermaine should be treated like he didn't lose the fight also. A lot of boxers, a lot of fans talk about how great it is to be a boxer who's a free agent, able to strut your way around the board and pick your opportunities. Well, such privileges are only limited to few, and maybe only limited to them for a very short period of time, depending on if they can keep winning and keep their market value up. You know, Fabio Wardley, he addressed the risks of being a free agent. Let's say in his next fight, he defeats Fraser Clark. Ben Shalom and Boxer have no ties on Fabio, so he'll be able to talk to Eddie, Frank Warren, Bob Arum, and Al Heyman because he's a free agent. But if he loses, and loses badly, well, let's start with his paycheck. He'll be at the mercy of what the promoters want to pay him next. If he was aligned and signed with any of the big boys, there'd be a cap on how much they try to deduct on his next purse. But, you know, 17-0, 16 inside the distance. He'll be defending his British title for the second time against Fraser Clark. Came out of the white collar circuit. No amateur experience. He doesn't really lose, does he? Like, all of what he's achieved with that backstory. So, you know, he's not going to be thinking about that. He's going to be thinking that he's going to beat Fraser Clark. And the vibe I'm picking up is a lot of people think he's going to beat Fraser, who does have an amateur background, who does have a fixed contract with Boxer and Sky Sports. And with Fabio, you know, being a free agent, it all depends on what kind of loss it is. If it's a controversial loss, yeah, next time he goes to negotiate with any of the big promoters, he won't have a belt as a bargaining chip, but they'll still be able to get him in decent fights for decent money. You know, Joe Joyce is coming back soon. He's fighting Cash Ali. Yeah, that's way down the pecking order from Zhilei Zhang. I don't know what Frank has to pay him, but it's not a purse that Frank would like to pay Joe Joyce for a fight against a regular British heavyweight. And depending how much more fights Joe has in his contract, even if he loses to Cash Ali, Frank will have to pay him what's in line on what's required on his contract, unless Joe walks away. Or, as everybody says, Frank might try to cash Joyce out rather than keep paying him fat purses to try and get his confidence back against some also-rans. Saul Canelo Alvarez becoming king narcissist, isn't he? Thinking that everybody's just happy to wait around to hear him say fuck all. He has a conference to tell everybody, well, he's going to fight an American next. becoming very annoying. So the speculation is that it could be Jamal Charlo or Terence Crawford. Well, the arguments are Crawford too small, Jamal Charlo not good enough. The contingency that support David Benavidez are going to be doing their fucking nut. I'll tell you that now. Canelo ain't going to be very popular amongst them. Although when he says he's going to fight an American next, okay, that eradicates Jaime Munguia. That eradicates that fight. But it doesn't totally cancel out David Benavidez, does it? Could have been a cryptic message from Mr. Annoying. In brief, it's already penciled in on the next gen card, April the 27th. Jaroki O'Quinn will attempt to derail Peter McGrail for the second time. Jaroki from America knocked out the favoured Peter McGrail, who'd done very well as an amateur. He was 5-0 going into that. Well, McGrail will have the chance to avenge the loss on the 27th of April in Liverpool. Lawrence Okolie set for shock next move in his career. Well, literally the same story came up late last year, where Ben Shalom says he's going to move up to heavyweight, but we haven't heard Lawrence say anything. Ben Shalom's talking. All of a sudden, Lawrence has just gone mute since that Chris William-Smith loss. It seems his brother Henry is talking more to the media than Lawrence is, and he says that he wants his rematch against Chris William-Smith. That's what he said last time, but things may have changed. He's going to move up to heavyweight or challenge for the Bridgerweight title. Haven't the WBA got a new weight class in between cruiser and heavyweight? Could challenge for that too. Subriel Matias inks multi-fight co-promotional pact with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom. Eddie Hearn chuffed to bits, saying this is a huge signing. Welcome to the team, Subriel Matias. One bad man.
I'm a bad man.
I can't lie, you know, this guy needs a promoter. Let's see what Eddie can do. I mean, Subriel is aligning himself to a big machine in Matchroom and DAZN, but it doesn't mean that a lot of the top 140 pounders, and they have a sizable quantity of world-class 140 pounders at Matchroom. It doesn't mean they're going to jump in the ring with him, although Liam Paro will be his first fight, and that's a good fight in Puerto Rico, where Matias comes from. So hopefully he'll get a big turnout there. And maybe that could spark a revival, him defending his title over there. But who's going to go over there is the question. Liam Paro might, but will Devin Haney, will Teofimo Lopez? Well, first Matias has got to concentrate on the job in hand, yeah? Paro looks like a good challenger to me, and if he gets through that, maybe the likes of Ruger Regis Prograis might fancy his chances. That'd be a good fight. There's good fights out there for him. There will definitely be good fights. He's made the right move.